Hello everybody, welcome to celloprofessor.com. My name is Jamie Feist. I teach at Central Michigan University, and I have a guest today. We're doing something a little different. This is Steve McCann from Guarneri House here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I have here in my hands one of his cellos that he recently made. When was this finished?
A year and a half ago, I think.
A year and a half ago. And I tried it a few months ago, and I really like it a lot. Okay, I really like this cello quite a bit. It has qualities that I really like in a cello. It's clear, but it's not like overly bright or anything. It's clear. It has a lot of resonance, but it still has a lot of voice to it underneath the sound, and it has a big bassy bottom. Yeah. So I thought we would do a little interview with Steve about the cello and about his Luthering. Is that a way to say that?
It's one way.
One way to say it. Okay, good. So, why don't I just play a little something on the cello? I mean, so they can just hear a little bit. Okay, so that gives everybody a little idea of the sound, at least on the upper strings. Let me try a little bit of that. Okay, yeah, so not sure how much the mic setup is picking up, but it sounds great. So, I know you were telling me how you found the wood for this cello. I don't know, maybe it's an interesting place to start.
Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's got an unusual one-piece back.
Let's show everybody here.
And I found that when I was visiting my son in Vermont. And I believe the wood is actually from Vermont as well.
Mm-hmm.
Often we buy wood from suppliers and we don't know exactly where the tree was cut.
Right.
But the sides and the back are also from red maple.
Nice. Well, you can see the flaming on the side here. And I think it's quite striking. The flaming on the sides and the way it goes into the edges too, the flaming.
Mm-hmm.
You don't always see that. What about the wood? Is it just because the flaming is so prominent in the wood that you can see it on the sides? Can we see that in the video well? Yeah, it's kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes the flame you can see from one direction more than the other depending on how the wood is cut.
I see.
So sometimes you'll see it on the quarter sawn figure, and sometimes you only see it when it's slab cut as the back is.
I see.
So
Okay. So it just depends on
how the flame is in the tree and how the tree is cut.
Okay. So
And some trees have no flame at all, and some have a lot.
how does the flaming affect the sound at all in your experience, or is it purely sort of a visual aesthetic?
I'm sure it has some effect, but there have been really nice cellos made with maple that has no flame at all. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
It can look nice more than affect the sound, I think.
Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting. And is there any advantage to a one-piece back like this?
I don't have to join the two halves together.
So it's easier to put together. Okay. So, but again, it's very visually appealing, I think, when it's a one-piece back, isn't it? Yeah, because there's no, it's just, the flaming is just like one organic whole.
If you look at some of the oldest instruments,
Mm-hmm.
they had one-piece backs.
Okay.
And then when they started doing two-piece backs, they often had the flame going in the same direction on both halves instead of doing the chevron type thing,
Okay.
just to make it look more like a one-piece back.
Oh, okay.
And then after time, then they just quit trying to make it look like a one-piece back and had different orientations.
Okay. So the one-piece back was sort of like the standard for a while.
I think really back like when violins were made and cellos were first made. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's really beautiful. And is there anything else you'd like to mention about the cello, the wood, or the top?
It's based on a Strad model of Form B.
Okay.
Yeah.
A Strad model.
Yeah.
And for our viewers who may not know, the top is spruce.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure of the origins of this particular spruce.
Okay. All right.
I just know I liked it because it has, they call it bear claw or
Mhm.
hazel ficta. It has a
yes.
figure that you can see running in through here.
Right, because it's kind of sometimes it's
Yeah.
curved a little, isn't
Yeah.
it? I don't know if they can see that, but here, let's. How does that look? Okay.
But the flame usually on maple goes deep into the wood.
Mhm.
The bear claw is very shallow, so oftentimes I'll be carving a top and think this looks great, and then carve right through some of the.
Oh, I see. I see. So you might see it just for a moment, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
Okay, really nice. Now I know you brought some samples of wood in its.
Yes.
This is in its very roughed out, not even roughed out. It's just the very first stages of making a cello. This is kind of where you start, isn't it?
This would be the wood as I purchased it from the wood dealer.
Okay.
And then the two halves of the top have to be joined together. This is some spruce from Italy.
Okay.
The two halves of the top have to be joined together. The outline would be cut out. Then there's a lot of carving involved
Oh,
because the final thickness of the wood is not very thick,
Mm.
but the shape and how it's
Oh,
thick,
yeah.
where it's thick, and all that make a big difference
make a
in the
big
sound.
difference. Yeah. So you glue it together first, you
Mhm.
were saying, and then you shape it from there.
Yeah.
And what kind of glue do you use? That's just something that popped into my head.
Well, that's a good question.
Because it never seems to come apart on cellos. I've never seen it come apart at the seam here. Like,
If we do it right, it shouldn't.
okay, that's
No,
important.
we still use the old-fashioned hide glue.
So it's hide glue also
It is
just
hide
for
glue. The nice thing about hide glue is that it can be reversed. If the seam would happen to come open, we can
Mhm.
clean out the old glue easily,
right.
and we can also reglue it then with the same hide glue. The top and the back actually sometimes have to come off if there's some damage from an accident or whatever.
Mhm.
Then the top might have to come off, and hide glue is reversible. That's the nice thing about it.
Right, right. And for those who don't know, I mean, basically the whole thing is glued together with hide
Yeah.
glue.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that you can take it apart and put it back together again
Right.
without damaging anything.
Yeah, there would not be all the famous Stradivarius and Guarneris around anymore if they did not use the hide glue, because the modern glues, you don't want them too strong because
Right.
then you can't repair things.
Sure. Exactly. So so that's very interesting. So you glue those together and you start shaping. What was the first step again after you've glued them together? Then
Well,
you
let's start at the beginning.
Yeah, let's start
Okay.
at the beginning.
I don't have a mold here, but I start with a mold, which is a form
Okay.
that goes on the inside of the ribs,
Okay.
and there's a block at each corner and at the ends,
Mm-hmm.
and so I bend the sides and glue them to the blocks.
Those
Now,
are the sides right there.
the sides are quite thin and seems like they're not very sturdy, but once you get them bent and everything's glued together, this is pretty solid. So this is the same wood as the sides on
Yeah.
that particular instrument there.
And do you thin them any more than this, or is this about it?
This is it.
Now,
So
and this is maple.
this is maple. I had this, I saw the thickness roughly and then ran it through a sander that someone had to thin it down.
Okay.
But most of what's done in the initial stages can be with power tools, and then after that, it's a lot of handwork.
I imagine luthiers get maybe injured, get little tendonitis.
Some can, yeah.
It's a lot of
Take care of ourselves.
Yeah, I bet. So you said that you thinned that. So what does that look like before you make it so thin? You saw it so thin. Is it?
It's just a board.
It's like a board.
It's a board.
Because that's amazingly uniform, like the thickness.
Yeah.
So you just are.
Yeah.
You have to do it very carefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I ran this through a sander, a surface sander, so that's why the uniform thickness on this.
I see.
I've done it by hand before, which is more work, but it's a good way to do it. I still do my violin sides that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Just so
A lot of planing.
Wow. Okay. It's very time consuming.
It is.
I imagine. Yeah. How long does it take you to make it? Well, you're busy restoring.
Yeah.
So, but let's say someone is doing it full time, just making cellos. Like, how long would that take them to make a cello?
If I just kept track of hours, which I usually don't, it would be well over 300 hours for a cello.
300 hours for a cello.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's a lot faster than I'd probably be able to. Okay.
So this is some maple.
Okay.
This will be a back. The two halves
Okay.
are glued together.
All right.
And it's the same process as the top. The profile is cut, the outline, and then a lot of hand carving with gouges and chisels and finger planes and small planes.
Yeah. And how do you? I mean, it's always a mystery to me because I know as you're carving the tops and the backs, you're looking for thicknesses, the right thicknesses, and when I've seen videos, I see luthiers kind of checking. And,
oh yeah.
I mean, does everyone kind of have their secret? You have it's all experience, isn't it?
Yeah, everybody has their own style and what they consider to. For me, it's a multi-sensory experience.
Okay.
Trying to get the top the right thickness. I'm always tapping and twisting and then seeing how it bends and rubbing on it and whatnot.
Now, when you're tapping at different points, sorry, I probably shouldn't touch the bar. But when you're tapping at different points, are you listening for a resonance? Is that what it is?
A couple of things. There are certain modes of vibration on a plate like that.
Okay.
And I'm listening for those, but I'm also just listening for the general sound of it, whether it's crisp sounding, whether it resonates. This particular top, it resonates now. It resonated a lot while I was making it as well.
So you knew it was a resonating.
Oh yeah.
I mean, again, folks, can you still hear that? It's still going. It's still going. Okay, it's now coming to an end. I mean, well, that was one of the things I noticed. You probably still hear that.
Yeah.
It's still resonating. Okay, this cello really, really resonates. So when you were making this, you could tell that this was going to have a lot of resonance.
Yeah.
I mean, generally, string players, we like resonance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've noticed too, in other cultures, they'll put tons of sympathetically vibrating strings beneath because they can get more resonance. We seem to like resonance, where you see string instruments that are bowed or whatever, or even plucked. It seems like resonance is always a goal, Yeah, so it's. So you could tell when you're making it, you're like, oh, I think I got a really good piece of wood here.
Definitely.
Nice. So you're tapping, and what do you checking for when you're bending it? Just strength? Is that testing for strength, or is that a sound thing too?
That's more just to see how, not just whether it's strong or not, but how it's strong. So there's, how twisting is different than bending this way or lengthwise. There's different ways that I'm
different things you're checking.
Trying to check out.
Okay. And how I mean, do you have a pretty decent idea of what the cello is going to sound like as you're making it, or is it going to be a surprise?
It's always a surprise. But
It's always a surprise.
I never know.
You never know for sure.
I never know for sure, and sometimes it can take a few months before I'm happy with the setup and the sound and all that.
Okay, and you tweak it.
And if I'm not after a year or two, then I'm not afraid to take the top off and do a little of this or that.
Do another top.
Yeah. But usually everything can be done with the setup to get it eventually to where it.
Right.
And varnish drying makes a difference too. So I may get it sounding the way I really like it when I first set it up, and then a week later, the varnish is a little drier, or it's used to being set up with tension that it never had before.
Right.
And then just, it's a matter of settling it.
Mm-hmm. So the varnish, how much does that have to do with the sound? Because
quite a bit.
Because I know there are all kinds of
Yeah.
like formulas and recipes, right, for varnish. So it makes a big difference.
It does. If you played an instrument with no varnish, it can sound a little raw.
Okay.
Might be nice and resonant, but a little raw sounding.
Got it.
And the varnish tends to just smooth things out a little bit. You don't want too much because you don't want it too deadened.
Yeah.
But yeah, the varnish does make a difference.
Okay. It kind of so if it's a little raw, the varnish kind of gives it a little polish to the sound, you might say.
Yep.
Okay, that's interesting. And generally speaking, it's not a good idea to revarnish, like to take varnish off a cello and put new varnish on, or is there ever a time for that?
If an instrument is made by a particular maker and it has some value, then that changes what the maker's intent was and changes the value. So if you revarnish an instrument, it can change the value.
Right.
If the varnish is totally messed up, then it really needs to be done. Then it needs to be done.
Like if it's an Amati, you don't touch the varnish, probably, right? Because that's
some of these old instruments, surprisingly little varnish is left. A lot of it is over varnishing.
Interesting.
So whenever I see an old instrument, an old Italian instrument that still has a lot of original varnish, it's nice to see that.
Okay, so that would be a unique thing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And
so the secret to the old instruments is not in the varnish.
It's not in the varnish because most of it's gone anyway.
Most of it's gone on a lot of the Strats that don't have much of their original varnish.
Okay, so there are a lot of theories on like the sound of these older Italian instruments, and I've seen like different articles from the wood was in the water going down the river for a certain amount of time to like how fast or slow it was growing, or do you have any theories at all, or is it as to why they sound so good, or is it just they've been played so long and they were well constructed?
All of the above.
All of the above?
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of amusing, a little irritating as well, but somebody like every couple of years comes up with the secret of Stradivarius.
Oh, I see.
So one year it might be it's the varnish, the next year it'll be the wood was floated in this.
Yeah.
So, then
something or other.
Whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
And some of it probably, everything makes a difference is
right.
The bottom line.
Exactly.
Everything makes a difference in the instrument.
It all goes together, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's really interesting then. And, well, is there anything else you'd like to tell us about this instrument?
No, just I mentioned earlier about the setup. Often it's a matter of trying different strings.
Yeah.
Fooling around with cutting a little here and there on the bridge. Even different end pins can make a difference in the sound.
Yes.
And then, of course, the sound post on the inside is the main way you can adjust the sound.
Right.
But everything makes a difference.
Everything makes a difference. And actually, people watching may not realize how much difference the setup does make. I didn't really learn that until I lived out in Boston. This was like quite a number of years ago. We're talking the 1990s. So I lived out there and took my cello in, for something. And there was a store there adjusted it, and I was really shocked at how much difference it made. You know, and so after that, you know, I always, before, in other words, you may not actually necessarily need a totally new cello necessarily. It may just need an adjustment sometimes, right?
Make sure you're getting all you can out of the one you have.
Make sure you're getting all you can out of the one you have.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and you mentioned you take time to adjust your new cellos.
Yes.
I have another question that popped into my head. So I know that a brand new cello goes through changes. And I think someone had told me, you can tell me if this is right or not, like there's sort of like this, the first 5 years and then like the next 10 years or something like this, or is that just not really a formula that is true? When's the biggest change, or I don't know, anything you can say about that might be interesting.
The first year probably.
The first year,
Yeah.
You'll see a lot of change?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I made an instrument for someone, I would like them to bring it back to me periodically for the first year.
Okay.
You know, just to make sure that it's settling in okay. Adjusting, because it can sound great one week when you first set it up, and the next week is like, what?
Yeah, what happened, right? That's a tricky thing with setup, right?
Yeah. It can take a while because the wood is just not used to being under tension, for one thing. And then you add in all the normal weather changes that the instrument's also not used to. That's an interesting thing also with wood. Over time it becomes more stable.
Okay.
So the humidity changes have less and less effect over time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, yeah, you need to keep adjusting it because the wood is trying to still figure out what's going on. Excellent. Well, this was very educational. And again, so this cello is still available, right?
Oh, yes.
So
Yes.
you can contact the Guarneri House here in Grand Rapids if you're interested in it. I think I would highly recommend taking a look at it. And it's going for how much?
40,000.
40,000, which is really like, I mean, that for some people they may not realize, but that's not a high price for a very well-made new instrument at all. Not today.
There are makers that get modern makers that get more than that.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Yeah. So it really kind of depends on the maker and probably where you're located too.
Yes. Yeah.
If you live in Italy, does that have anything to do with it?
Yeah, there are a lot of people that have moved to Cremona so that they can
charge more money. Exactly. The location, you know. Okay, makes sense. So, okay, folks. Well, I guess that's it. Thanks for taking your time to do this.
Yeah,
and
thanks for
very
trying
interesting.
It's good talking to you.
Yeah. So thanks so much. Yep.